Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I thought today we would talk about me and my cochlear implant. Basically, I think it's kind of a good time to explain how it works, growing up with it, what it's like. Obviously not everyone understands it, so I feel like this is a perfect time to try and explain in the best way possible if I can. Just so there's more awareness about it. And yeah, obviously it's my superpower and I want to share my superpower with you guys. And yeah, I hope you can get something away from this video. So yeah, this is kind of going to be a little bit educational, but obviously I try and make it fun at the same time. So growing up with a cochlear implant was never easy. So I was born completely deaf in both ears, and my parents found out when I was 12 months old, which is quite late on. And I had hearing aids till the age of 5, but hearing aids did not benefit me whatsoever, because hearing aids are there to amplify sounds and make things louder, whereas my hearing was damaged on the inside, not just the outside. So I got the cochlear implant when I was 5, and it's surgically done. It's a surgical process. It takes about 7 to 10 hours, and I'll get into the scientific details of how it works, but I'm going to start with like growing up and what it was like for me. So growing up was never easy at all. Having a cochlear implant is not an instant fix. It is a very long process after. So after the operation, you have to let your ear heal, and you have to really train your hearing. And I got that when I was at the age of 5. So when I was younger, I kind of grew up always comparing myself in a negative way to other people. And in high school, I never was confident about it. My confidence didn't spur from such a young age. It happened quite late on. But in school, I always used to put my hair down. I never used to show it. I always used to hide it. I was never confident in talking about it. So yeah, in school, you're not really taught that having, well, I go by superpower, is okay. And you're not really growing up in an environment where, like, I went to a public school and I needed to get sent to a deaf school. And the reason why my parents sent me to a public school so I can be around a social environment, and they didn't think that going to a deaf school would benefit me. I went to a public school, and that put me in situations where I had to communicate through speech with, hearing people. And I think that was a bit of a challenge for me, because it also did benefit me at the same time, but it also was hard because as a teenager, you're growing up still trying to figure out who you are as a person. You're going through all these crazy things that women do, as you all know, girls. Yeah, as you know, as women, I was going through a lot, and I always had to deal with growing up wearing a cochlear implant. So I think I was just always comparing myself, and I always used to blame my parents for making me deaf. I was born into a hearing family, so that made it even more challenging for me, because sometimes obviously my family would never understand what I was going through because everyone was hearing. So it was hard for me to explain and get them to understand why I felt the way I did sometimes. I think for me, when I started to kind of flourish and really own up to my superpower, was the dance industry. I've been training as a dancer ever since I was 4 or 5. And funny story, so my dad used to put steps on the TV, and I used to go put on a princess outfit, come downstairs and follow the steps on the TV, so follow the dance moves. And I think my parents was just like, let's take her to a dance class. And I think the dancing really helped with me and my confidence, because the dance industry is so diverse and everyone accepts who you are for you. And it's a place of freedom. It's a place of just letting yourself go and expressing your emotions. And it's my safe space. It's my safe place of showing people who I am. And I think that's a time for me. So that was probably when I was 19, 20, that I really did start to kind of grow into a butterfly and just spread my wings and fly. And I really started to be more confident about it and speak on it and raise more awareness around it. And with dancing, how I hear the music, so I actually I can hear, obviously, because that's what the cochlear implant is there to do, but I actually feel the vibrations through the floor and the beat and the bass. So when it's like if I'm in a studio and there's loudspeakers, it's like do, do, do. I can feel it through my body, and that's how I go off music. So for me, I can't specifically hear lyrics in the music. Sometimes I have to go on Google, search on Google and learn the lyrics and kind of go off that way. And that's why music is so special to me, because it's just how I feel it, how I can really embrace it, and the way it just runs through my body and feeling the vibrations is really a great feeling. So I think that's why dancing is just something that I've always been passionate about, and I've trained with such hardcore choreographers, and that's got me to where I am now with my dancing. It's just crazy how that the dance industry has really made me into the person I am now, kind of, pretty much. And people that I've been surrounded with have really lifted me up. When I was in training at Creative Academy, that was probably the time where, like I said, I really started to understand who I really was. I started to learn that it doesn't define me, it's just a part of who I am. It's something special and unique that not everyone has. And it was tough at the same time though. There'd be times where my cochlear implant would fall out mid-dancing, and I'd walk out, I'd get upset, I'd get angry, I'd get frustrated. There's a lot of things that come with it, and it's not an instant fix of having a cochlear implant. There's so much more things that come with it that is also very hard, which I will get onto. But yeah, so growing up, I've never always been confident and never always been in this kind of way. Confidence is something that you do have to work on, and something that you do, it kind of clicks. It's like a click moment of, actually, I do regret, looking back, I do regret spending most of my teenage years hiding it and not speaking up about it, because like I'm literally sat here and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, I just don't understand why. But I think it's because growing up, we're never really taught that people with disabilities / superpowers are no different. And I think because we kind of grow up in an environment of social media, having to be perfect all the time, having to look a certain way, it really does pressurise, especially the younger generation now, it really does put that pressure on them even more. And that's kind of what I stand for, is no, like, you are you. Never let anyone take that away from you. It makes you who you are. You're special. Hearing or deaf, or no matter what superpower you've got, everyone's always going to have an opinion, negative or positive. You always have to stay on the positive side and just do you. And that's what I started to learn, especially in the past few weeks, to be fair. You know, you have to really stay true to who you are, and that's what's going to get you to places. So I am going to tell you exactly how the cochlear implant works. I have got notes on my laptop because it's quite a complicated one. So I'm going to read it out from my notes and try and explain it in deeper detail so you can fully understand. Because if I try and memorise it in one go, I'm going to be like, ah. So how it works is a cochlear implant bypasses damaged portions of the ear and directly stimulates the auditory nerve. Signals generated by the implant are sent by way of the auditory nerve to the brain, which recognises the signals as sound. So it's very scientific, I know. So basically, I'm going to show it because it's so much easier to actually show it and explain. So this is the external part, which is the cochlear implant. And this is the coil. This is called coil, and this is the wire. And then the microphone is literally on the tip. This is where my finger's pointing at. That is where the sound travels through. So I don't hear from my actual ear, I hear through the implant. And I think that's where people do get a bit mixed up. And yeah, as you can see, I can change colours. I can make it pink, red, white, brown, whatsoever. I make designs for it, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so this is the outer part. And then, so where the coil is, I have got a magnet fitted in my head, which is behind the coil. So when the coil and the magnet connects, that is what activates the cochlear implant. And I'll show you, I'm going to take this out. My voice may change because I won't be able to hear my voice speaking. So just bear with. So when I take this out, there's 2 batteries. So the battery is about 2 to 3 days. That's how long they last. I have battery packs with me, and yeah, so to activate it, it should go green. Yeah, that little green light means it's activated. And so I'm registered with Medal Global. That's who my cochlear implant is with, and it's called a Sonnet. And there's many different types of cochlear implants out there, and this is the one that was just suited for me. Of course, people can have small ones, big ones, etc, etc. It's not there to look pretty or whatsoever. That's why it's great that I can change colours and make my own designs and things like that, so I feel comfortable with it. So I'm with Medal Global, and at the time, that's just what's best for my hearing. That's kind of how it really works. So the sound that travels through the microphone is like signals, then it's very clever, that then gets recognised as sounds and travels to the brain. So I'm going to talk a little bit about activation, rehab, and like just a little bit about that, because it's not an easy process. It's not you switch it on and it's working fine. So I've had, when I was 5, I don't remember much when I was 5, but I actually did have a reoperation when I was 16, and I was in the middle of my A-levels, and it basically just went off. It like just went off, and I was like, oh no. So we went to the hospital, and basically the hospital said it had broke. My implant has a lifeline of 15 to 20 years, so that's pretty much 15, 16 years then. And no, that's a lie, that was like 10 years. My math is very bad, I do apologise. And at that point, it just broke, and I basically was deaf for a good 4 to 5 months because I couldn't wear my implant because it's broken on the inside. That was hard. That was really hard for me because I had to do all my first year A-levels in my second year because it's during the exam period time, and I had to get a whole new implant. I had to go through the whole process again. And I remember the switch on, everyone's voices was literally robotic. It was scary, like everyone just sounded like robots. And I just remember being like, this is how it's going to sound like. I was so scared because the implant I had before did not sound like that. So I was panicking. And then eventually you have to train your hearing, you have to train your ear to get it to where it is now. And it's so weird because I'll never know what a hearing person sounds like with their sounds. My hearing is so different to hearing people, very, very different. And the way, especially with my speech, the way I talk, I think it's weird because when I watch myself on TV, especially on Love Island, I sat there like, is that what my voice really sounds like? And when I speak, it sounds different to how it sounds to other people, like hearing people. So it's quite interesting. And I think speech is just something that having a cochlear implant, I had speech therapy when I was younger. So I had to really train my speech, really accentuate my words, diction. Sometimes I still stutter a little bit sometimes, and I still sometimes struggle with words. And even being in the filler, such an intense environment, I still struggled in conversations. Or when people say I've got a text, read out the text, I would be like, oh, what did the text say? I miss out quite a lot. So yeah, it wasn't easy in the filler as well. Activation. To activate the cochlear implant, an audiologist will adjust the sound processors to fit you, which is the external part. Check the components of cochlear implant to make sure they work. Determine what sounds you or your child hears. Give you information on the proper care. Set the device so you can hear to the best of your ability. So it's quite clever. So I've got an audiologist in Oxford, and that's my closest audiology. And it's basically like a room, and it's very clever. It's got that computer set up, and when I go for checkups, they can connect my cochlear implant into the computer, and they can adjust pitches, tones, sound levels, etc, etc. So it's very, very clever. I do have a TikTok video on that, so if you do fancy seeing the audiologist, there's a TikTok video. I'll pin it to the top so you can all see. And rehab. So rehab involves training your brain to understand sounds heard through the cochlear implant. Speech and everyday environmental noises will sound different to what you remember. Your brain needs time to recognise what these sounds mean. So The process is ongoing, best achieved by wearing a speech processor continuously during waking hours. So when I was younger, I always had to put it on. So before I got the cochlear implant, I was actually communicating through BSL. I was fluent in British Sign Language. But when I got the cochlear implant, I had to force myself to not use sign language and really focus on my speech and training my ear, so I don't rely on BSL. So that was quite a tough time because I kept going back to BSL, but I had to force myself not to use it so my speech would get better. But this is kind of like another bit of a longer explanation of how about the cochlear implant. So a microphone that's on the back of the ear detects sounds in a surrounding environment that converts into electrical signals. The signals are then sent to a small computer processor that selects and amplifies certain frequencies to make speech easier to interpret. Those signals are passed to a transmitter attached to the outside of the head with a magnet, so now onto the magnet part. The transmitter sends the signals to a receiver that has been surgically placed under the skin, above the ear. So that is the inside, so I've got the internal part as well. The receiver sends signals to the inner ear, a longer cable to a series of electrodes implanted directly in the cochlea. The signals generate electrical impulses along the electrodes that stimulate the nerve fibres surrounding the cochlea, which in turn stimulate the auditory nerve, sending nerve signals to the brain. So it's hard for me to understand tonal language or to isolate individual speeches in a crowd or in a club. It can be really hard in loud environments. I'm having to focus on one person. So especially certain accents. I'm going to do an example like Dammy's Irish accent. When I first met Dammy, I just remember sitting there being like, yeah. I had no idea what Dammy was saying. But then eventually, I think about 3-4 days in, I had to train myself to understand Dammy's accent. So that's kind of a good example of how it kind of works. So obviously I'm used to my mum and dad's voice because I had to train myself to understand their voices. Same with Andrew, same with my friends and people I'm close to. So if Andrew was to walk out and say a sentence, I'll know it's his voice because I've trained my ear to recognise his voice. So it's very clever how it actually does work. But yeah, that's kind of the scientific side of how a cochlear implant does work. It's crazy because technology is such an amazing thing to have nowadays, and technology is constantly evolving every day, and I'm just super lucky to have a cochlear implant that has saved my hearing. So when I take out my cochlear implant, I am completely deaf. I get the best sleep ever, the best sleeps. Andrew snores as well, so I'm literally like, yes, peaceful. It's not waterproof, so I do wear a waterproof cover, which I will show you right now. So when I was doing challenges in the villa that involved water, this is what I had to do. So I had to change my batteries to alkaline manganese. Alkaline manganese. I think it's just basically waterproof batteries. So I had to change it to these ones, and I had to wear this over my cochlear implant. And so I put the external processor into this, and basically it would tuck around like that and it would just be there. So that's what protected my cochlear implant from the water in the challenges in the villa or anything to do with water. They kind of said to me, look, it might be a water-based challenge, so please put it on. So that is what I had to do. Obviously when I go in the shower, I just take it out. I don't put waterproof cover on it because yeah, it's fine. I can have a shower without needing to hear anything. Obviously I was worried about doing the challenges that involved water, but there was a way around it, so I had to wear water wear, which is basically what I just showed you. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah, what I had to do. One thing that deaf people, hard of hearing, cochlear implant, hearing aids whatsoever, struggle with is concentration fatigue. And this is a really big thing that is noticed in any deaf person or wearing a cochlear implant, things like that. So because we are having to really overwork our brain more than a hearing person, I'm constantly having to lip read. Even though I got my cochlear implant, I still do have to lip read every day, constantly, especially being in a social environment when I go shopping, or you know, if I go out clubbing or go for drinks to a bar, you know, I'm socially meeting people. especially new people, and I don't understand their accent, and I'm struggling, it can really get to you quite a lot. Yeah, like literally, at the end of the day, I am absolutely exhausted, especially recently. Life's been so busy, so I come home, I'm just completely, when I say exhausted, I suffer from bad migraines because my brain is so overworking, and because of the magnet and the coil, it is quite painful quite a lot because there's such strong magnets. When I say strong, I mean they are strong, so that can really pulsate and give me really bad headaches. I just get very exhausted having to lip read all the time, having to really hear people in such busy environments, and that's okay. Like, I love the work, I love being busy, I love being on my toes, and sometimes it can really just make me tired. So sometimes in the filler, I was honestly exhausted sometimes, even after a challenge. Being in the sun all day as well, like really hot weather, can also make you tired. So that's like even double the effect. And it can make you more emotional as well, which is actually a proven thing, because when you're really fatigued and tired, I do wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional person anyway, but there was days where, you know, I just had a really bad headache, I was just tired, I just wanted to go to sleep, and I was just, my emotions would really overtake me. So being in the filler was also hard with that, in that case scenario. I'm not sitting here looking for sympathy. I'm just explaining how it is growing up with a cochlear implant, what it's truly like, because it's not all there to look pretty, it's not there as an instant fix. There's a lot of things that do come with it, and that's just one of the things that I have to deal with. And I've grown up with it, so I know how to deal with it. I just have a little nap or take, you know, tablets or whatsoever. I have to take breaks in between. So yeah, that's kind of a thing that, you know, deaf people or people with cochlear implants, hearing aids, do suffer with, and that is genuinely a proven fact. So yeah, it is quite an intense thing that can happen. But like I said, you know, I've lived with it pretty much my whole life, and I would never change it for the world, because it's made me who I am now. So that's kind of like the overall thing of how cochlear implant works. I've gone over the activation, rehab, a little bit about the filler, what it's like, and growing up as well. I want to do a YouTube video just kind of explain a little bit more about it, because I know I get quite a lot of questions on how it does actually work, how do I hear the music and things like that. And yeah, it's just, honestly, I think it's crazy, because going into the filler, going on Love Island, I did not expect to be picked for it at all. And going into the filler, I was genuinely nervous, because I was going in for the deaf community as well, not just myself, and I didn't want to let my deaf community down. And yeah, it was just such an experience I'll never forget. And, you know, Love Island made me meet Andrew, I made friends for life, and I went in there for 2 reasons, which was to find love and to raise awareness about my deaf community and being deaf and cochlear implant, etc. And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. Like, I'm so proud to wear a cochlear implant. I'm very proud, and every day I'll continuously keep pushing to raise awareness and keep pushing for my deaf community, because there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I'm just overwhelmed by all the messages I get from the deaf community. I just do want to say thank you so much. All I ever wanted to do was inspire the younger kids, or the generation, that you can do what you want. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. Don't let your superpower stop you. And the reason why I call it a superpower, because it makes me feel empowered. Everyone's got their own personal reasons to what they want to call it, but for me personally, I like to go by superpower, because it makes me feel empowered, it makes me feel positive, it makes me feel strong. So that is why I say it's my superpower, because it's cool, it's different, and it's like a superpower in a way, because if I'm in the middle of an argument, I can just take it out and be like, I don't know what you're saying. I used to do that as a little kid as well to my parents. I always used to take it out mid-argument. Mum and Dad used to be like, put it back in now. And I'll be sat there like, I can't hear you. I was such a cheeky little kid, honestly. I used it to my advantage way too much. But yeah, I'm just so thankful that, you know, going on the show, it's given me that platform now to use for good, for better. I've got very exciting things coming. I will be going down the path of, you know, I'm not going to be, I don't want to give it away too much. Basically, I am going to be pushing for my deaf community, and there are things in the works for that to happen. I just want to say thank you so much for the love and the messages every day. You know, when I wake up, when I go to bed, throughout the day, when I read all of your messages, it honestly makes me smile so much. I'm so grateful for every single one of you that has been supporting me from the start. You know, it's been such a lovely journey so far, and I'm really enjoying it. And I hope this video has taught you something new. I hope you've taken away something you can educate other people. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and don't you worry, there'll be more YouTube videos coming. And yeah, honestly, thank you so much. I just feel very happy right now. And yeah, I really wanted to do this YouTube video because obviously it's something personal to me, and I hope that you have enjoyed this. And if you've got any questions, please ask me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can, asking YouTube comments. If there's any extra information you do want to know, go for it. But yeah, thank you so much.